have to turn back?
Well,
You know, that wind was vicious.
After golfing the night before, I remembered that I don't use my arms that way anymore.
Right.
golfing.
Oh, the Saturday night excursion was top golf. That is fun.
Oh,
I've never done that
Is
before.
that what do you mean with the
It was
little
fun.
thing, break the thing off in there at night?
They have these bays, and they're chipped. The golf balls are chipped,
Right.
so when you hit them, it shows
told
where
me about some
they
miles.
land, and you get points.
You guys
And,
talked to
so it was fun.
Jeff said we had a meeting with him coming up.
How's Joe? Finally made enough money we can afford to buy.
I don't know. We played Cheney in baseball last year, but I don't know last time we played them in football.
I got you.
Officer.
Boys in the home, pretty happy by yesterday.
I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm driving home. I'm getting these text updates from Keaton. Dak sucks. That's me.
Close.
Carmen saying our uniform.
We will, go ahead and call our meeting to order tonight for November the 8th. First thing on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We've got quite a few folks that came in tonight. I'd like to ask everybody to please sign the sign-in sheet if you haven't. Okay. Item 1.3, approval of the agenda. Everybody had a chance to take a look at it? Any questions?
And as we approve the agenda as presented.
Second? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Several items moving on down to 2.1 on the consent agenda. Anybody have any questions with any of those items?
The only question was on the budget information. The budget is not filled in yet for this year on those for comparative.
We're still working on that.
I assumed it had to do with the audit finalizing it.
By next month.
Mm-hmm.
Have we received the money for the grant for the test to stay?
We draw it down as we use it.
Okay.
So it was actually a multi-year grant, and we're, paying for the nurse throughout the entire year. So we draw it down as we use it.
And as we approve the consent agenda.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 6-0.
And Jimmy is on live.
Yes?
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, good. I didn't hear him vote, did you, or
No, it's probably need to turn this down.
it's probably more of a cough?
He's on the screen, you could have a wave at you. Or he was just a minute ago.
Okay,
I saw his face.
we'll move on to
Yes.
presentations. We have one person that has asked to speak to the board tonight for this. Gary, the floor is yours. Your time is 5 minutes.
All right, well, thank you. I planned to be really organized, but somehow Uncle David kept me out doing something on the farm till the last second, so I apologize if I'm not as organized as I maybe could have, should have been. I guess the first thing I want to do is thank all of you on the board and our superintendent and his staff for the tremendous job that you all did with the working through the past 4 years with the bond money. And really, there's hardly been any conversations in gypsum about anything, so I assume everything is rolling along really smooth out here, and your board is doing a tremendous job. And with COVID, you know, I commend you because COVID is just rampant everywhere, and you know, for you to plow through that and not have that much of a drop in enrollment is pretty exciting. I think a couple of things that kind of got me excited to come out here. One of them was the public forum that I know at least a couple of the board members, or at least one of the board members attended here that happened in Gypsum the other night. And we invited 13 people, and 7 out of the 13 chose to come. And I totally get it that that's something that's more done by Chamber of Commerce's, Lions Clubs, governing bodies or whatever, but last I knew, Gypsum didn't have a Chamber of Commerce, and it didn't have a public, it didn't really have anybody else that was going to put that together. Hopefully in 2 years, when the time comes, Southeast of Saline hosted a public forum that was very professionally done, and I guess I just throw it out there to the wind tonight, and hopefully it will catch some leads to maybe consider doing that. I think that it's important enough that you all are spending a considerable amount of taxpayer money out here as a board and working through about 700 young kiddos' futures and curriculums. And I think it's important that people know who they're voting for on the board. And I think it was pretty entertaining to watch the elections and how they all turned out this go around. As far as I had a whole bunch of things I was going to talk about, and one of them, I think, is just the fact of having to get permission to be on the agenda, and hopefully in the future, you all will reconsider that. I was on the board long enough to know that any given night, if there's more than one person that wants to stand up and brave enough to talk, it's a miracle. And so I think that you all ought to consider abandoning the ship of requiring people to be on the agenda ahead of time. I think if somebody is willing to stand up in front of you all and speak, I think they should be allowed that. If they come out here and they probably have something really on their heart they want to talk about, and might be some good information that the board might want to consider. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to hand those out or not, but there are little brochures about businesses that are kind of related to the gypsum community. I'll leave them, and if they're not appropriate, I guess you can throw them in the trash. You know, I guess one thing that I wanted to throw out also for you all's information is that there's quite a bit of efforts going on with First Impressions in Gypsum. How many of you are familiar with First Impressions in Gypsum? I know one of you are, 2 of you are. It's pretty exciting, that program, and you need to give me some time here. Am I at 3 now or 4?
3.5.
Oh, good. I got a minute and a half left. First Impressions was a program that Leslie basically got me involved with, and I do commend Leslie Manning for getting us off the ground and running with that program. and it's primarily Leslie's efforts that got it to happen in gypsum. And with the summer youth program, really took off. And the senior housing, I think, is about to take off. And if that was to occur, that might free up some houses. There's a lot of work being done right now. Behind the scenes, there's a meeting going on. That's why I kind of asked to get on this agenda pretty early, is that there is some pretty strong chances that there could be up to 13, 14 building sites available in gypsum as early as May or March of next year. And that would potentially be a nice boon to the economy. And obviously, Assyria has some in the Lindblad edition as well. And so I think that's something that as we hire new hires into our district, that would be something that we might want to tell our potential hires about so that we can encourage them to live in district. Because I remember back vividly when Dr. Bob lived down the street, and I remember him going to Lions Clubs and those kind of things. And I think with technology, we kind of got away from that. And we always want to talk about being a big, happy family out here. Well, I think if we spent more time in Assyria, Gypsum, Menor, Kip, and got to know our fellow neighbors at a higher level, and add more encouragement to actually have our teachers and our staff and everyone live in the district, maybe we could be a lot more harmonious school district. And I got to be at 5 yet. So you don't wave me off?
No, I'll let you finish your sentence.
Okay, well, and I did want to just say, since I'm standing here, I do have plenty of business enterprises in gypsum. If you had any questions about the housing, about first impressions, I would entertain like one question and maybe take 10 seconds to answer. And if not, I'll just sit down, and I do appreciate the time to speak this evening.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, thank you.
We are going to send you a bill for the extra 59 seconds you took, Bill.
Oh, yeah, well, you could have waited me off. You know, I told you, and I like I showed you, I wasn't.
All right. You're fine, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank
guys.
you. See ya.
Congratulations on your reelection and your reelection. And you have a really strong board. So.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to item 4.1. It's our yearly auditor's report. And tonight we have Jessica Lindsley to give us that report.
Hello, I'm Jessica Lindsley, and I'm with Farming Associates out at Manhattan, Kansas. And so thank you for having me tonight. And I just want to thank Mr. Stump and Sarah for all the help, and Kelsey too for all the help that they gave me during the audit time. And we had a group of 3 of us come out about a month ago, and it went really smoothly. And so hopefully no surprises, and it's kind of a boring report tonight, but we kind of love that. So hopefully you all have copies of the audit report. I'm just going to briefly go over some of the highlights, but if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer anything that you have. First, I would like to go through the governance letter. It was a 3-page letter, as well as the audit report. This letter just basically tells the different responsibilities and what we performed in the audit. Our responsibility as professionals is to form and express an opinion on the financial statements that have been prepared by your management. And this is in accordance with the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide, and that's what we call KMAG. So it's different than GAAP, and so you'll kind of hear me discuss that a little bit as we go through, and most of the school districts in Kansas are under the KMAG model. There were no significant accounting changes during this year. We did not identify or obtain any information that made us aware of any fraud during the audit this year. And there were no uncorrected misstatements that we found during the audit. And like I said, like Sarah's been doing a really great job, and so we had no surprises during the audit time for that. And the rest of it is pretty self-explanatory. Going forward on the audit, I will briefly go through the independent auditor's report on page 2. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of this financial statement in accordance with KMAG, as described in Note A. It is our responsibility just to express an opinion on those financial statements prepared by management. At the bottom of page 1, basis for adverse opinion, there is an adverse opinion based on GAAP. You do a GAAP waiver every year, so there's an adverse opinion on that. However, on the next page, you did get a clean opinion on KMAG for your audit this year. And then page 3 has your statement 1, and this is going to list out all of your funds on the left-hand side, and you're going to have your beginning cash, all of your receipts, expenditures, and then your ending cash, as well as anything that you encumbered at the year end or any accounts payable. Looking through your cash from the beginning to the end of the year is fairly consistent. There weren't a lot of changes in the total amount. One thing, there was a new fund this year for the ESSER 2 funding, and if you look at statement 1, it looks a little funny, but it does have negative cash, and that is consistent across the board on all school districts that we're dealing with, because you did expend that money during the fiscal year 2021, but you didn't receive the actual funds until 2022. And so next year that will be in the positive. So that's not a compliance violation, so I wanted to point that out. You get a waiver for that just due to the timing of the grant receipts on that. Other than that, it was, everything seemed to be pretty consistent with the prior year. Does anybody have any questions about any of the funds? Most of the notes were pretty consistent with the prior year as well. Each individual fund, and it will detail out the different receipts and expenditures. If you'd like to go into detail about a specific fund, I can do that, but it's pretty similar to the prior year. And then after that, we do have the agency funds and the district activity funds at the back by school site. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. Several times in the document, you referenced note A, and I couldn't find note A. It's in that last sentence, the last time it's referenced.
We're absolutely correct. I think we changed our note numbers this year.
Okay.
That should be note 1.
I kept looking and I was like, well, I think this is what she was talking about, but
Yes.
okay, perfect.
You are correct. We will make that change. But thank you. Anything else?
Anybody else have a question? I think we're good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was great to work with you all.
Thank you, Sarah, for all of your efforts. You weren't even noted as a significant accounting change.
How do you feel about that?
He was a great.
That's good.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Sarah, for the good work, and it's always nice when they come every year and reassure us that we believe we're doing a good job, and we are. Moving on to item 4.2 is our crisis team update, and I believe we have Officer Long here for that.
So, well, I'm just gonna give an updated kind of things we've been doing and also some stuff that I've changed since I've been here. We just had a couple recent crisis drills. We had a lockdown drill and a fire drill. We found some minor changes that needed made in those. And those were changed. The staff had a lot of good ideas. We took those and we ran with those. I changed the tornado and fire routes. We had, in the tornado drills, basically where there was a lot of installation over, changed those up. Gave everyone ample space at that point. The sheriff's office, we all got new radios, so we had all the old radios that were just sitting around and collecting dust. So the school purchased 25 radios from us, and I think they're all programmed and ready to go whenever the new ones are needed. So, and I do know we need those badly because there are some that are not working. When I got out here, we had the Crime Stoppers program. I don't know if you guys knew anything about that. I changed that all up. We no longer have Crime Stoppers. We now have SAFE, which is a seatbelt stop for everyone. It's a state-funded program. I started with about 12 students. We're up to over 30 students now in my SAFE program. So I think that's a fantastic thing for them. We did a seatbelt survey 2 weeks ago, and we had a 96% seatbelt usage with 345 total cars in the 2 days that we did. So we do a baseline survey, and then we'll do an end of the year survey, and hoping that that number gets better by some of the stuff we do, the prizes giveaways and those kinds of things. And then it looks like I'm going to be starting there next semester. So just kind of some of the things I've been doing. I haven't had a chance to talk with you guys. I figured I'd kind of give you an update on everything that's been going on. So, if there are any questions?
Yeah, I think it does sound wonderful. Thank
Perfect.
you for updating everything and making it safer for everyone.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming. Good to see you, Officer Long, here tonight. Do you still have an active committee for crisis planning that includes staff and administrators and everything?
Yep, that's all in place still, and several staff members, and that changes, year by year. Mrs. Gorman's a big help on that, so, yeah.
Kurt Crable is considered the chair of that committee and receives a small stipend. Mrs. Gorman is the active administrator on that committee and works very close. So those are really the three that drive that committee.
Good, all right, thank you.
Thanks for giving us some
Thank you.
time.
Absolutely.
Back those bees in.
A little bit, hopefully they're in bed by now.
Okay. Next, 4.3, we have our ESSER grant update from Mr. Snow.
Just to give you an update on where we are and things that have happened with the grants. There have been 3 rounds of federal relief provided to school districts to deal with the COVID pandemic and the unprecedented times that schools have gone through and things that we've had to adjust to. These do not include the money that was funneled through the counties that was called the Sparks Grant. So I've given you an update here on the 3 federal that came straight to the schools. ESSER, and the state has renamed them because the federal government put different names on all of them and it got a little confusing. ESSER 1, what the feds called the CARES Act, happened really early. We received $56,000, give or take, and that was gone in a blink of an eye. It really came as we were closing down those 9 weeks and things that we had to do. There was a whole lot of that money who went to PPE, personal protection equipment, masks and cleaning supplies, hand sanitizers and things like that. We replaced pretty much all of the soap dispensers, all of the sink faucets, and all of the toilets to all hands-free automatic touches. Things like that to try and reduce any cross-contamination that might occur. Out of that $56,000, 26 of it went to air purification units that were embedded into our existing HVAC that were designed to essentially improve the efficiency of our filters, filter the air as it went through our HVAC system. We also used some of that money to hire long-term subs and aides, but that money was due to be spent, had to be spent by December 2020. So that was only the first semester of last year, which created a whole lot of stress throughout school districts on what we were supposed to do for the spring semester. The thought there was that this would be quick and easy and over by December initially. Obviously, that was very optimistic. So ESSER 2 came along. It did not come along until later in the second semester. We chose on our own that we were going to continue the long-term subs and we were going to continue the student aid or the teacher aides that we had in place. And obviously, we were going to take care of the kids as needed to be done. Some of those costs included hotspots for families who did not have adequate Wi-Fi connections. Most people had adequate Wi-Fi for one person, but if you had more than one child at home, it would crash your system. And we found a lot of cases that's where most of the need was. ESSER 2 came out, a total of $210,000. And some of that was earmarked specifically for special education. So that went to the co-op to come back to benefit our students through their services. And I have a couple of expenditures that were listed on there. Things like we adopted a new social emotional curriculum. That played to the part where we saw the impact of the isolation from closing down for 9 weeks and the different stressors that was put on. We paid for summer school the first summer out of that money, and it also used that budget to pay for summer school this coming summer, and a few other things that we used that money for. The third and final federal stimulus for schools was actually the largest of the 3. Our piece of that is about $430,000. And some of the major expenses in there will be to continue some of the curricular things we did. We hired 2 at-risk paras. Some of that will come out of ESSER 2. To continue that, it'll come out of ESSER 3 because we will expend ESSER 2 before we're done. Also, the negotiating team agreed to a retention bonus, which will be coming out of those funds. And then we're not done yet. There are still things to be done. The ESSER 2 money is due to be spent by September of '23, and the ESSER 3 money is due to be spent out by September of '24. So this will carry us through the next 2 school years as we continue to address things. And so at-risk paras, we should have enough to budget through at least 2 more years of those positions to help our students most at risk and get them as caught up as possible so that they can be as successful in their own as possible. Are there any questions over these or any comments that you need me to address at this point?
Couldn't we help FCCLA with this ESSER money for what they're trying to do, since it's based on the social and emotional?
I hadn't thought of that. That is something we could consider. That is, there are some pieces of that that would overlap.
Yeah, because I was reading the correction thing, a lot of it rang about what the kids were saying too. So if we could help them with that, that would probably lighten their load.
They also have, part of that plan is the planning and responsibility for identifying funds and setting that up. So we want to make sure that they're doing their due diligence, and we will help as we can. The board has indicated a desire to help with that. We could use this instead of district funds to do that. We've indicated as such.
So that ESSER 3 amount, that 430,000 roughly, is set. That is a cap, correct, that will not increase based on need, or so our goal is to utilize that as effectively as possible through 2024. Okay.
Yes. And we have done budgeting through this. We have budgeted all of ESSER 2, although we have not expended it all at this point. We still have another a year from September to spend that. We have essentially allocated where we think it will go. And there's going to be adjustments along the way. Summer school, we budgeted a certain amount for that, not knowing how many students would come, how much it would actually cost us, how many people we would need to cover the amount of students. So we'll see. Summer school might grow next summer and require a larger piece of that. It may not, and it may end up going at the same rate as we had last summer. So there is some flexibility. They've allowed us some flexibility as some things may come in above and some things may come in below.
I think it's going to be, I'm just going to try to remember a quote from President Bartholomew. The COVID money got to run out sometime, or
Well,
but all to say that I know Steve has been, cognizant of that, and which I'm appreciative of, because it's a big injection of cash into our district, and we just want to be mindful as it begins to fade out in 2024. From what I'm hearing, that we aren't we're able to adapt appropriately.
That is a very good point, and one of the things that has been widely discussed, one of the stressors with superintendents across the state. It is fantastic that we are getting this influx of money. There have been so many things we have wanted to do and couldn't afford to do that now we have this influx of money. We can make some really nice things happen, but we have to be aware of the fact that this is one-time money. And the sustainability is a huge issue, because when this money runs out, if we've started a bunch of programs that are supposed to carry on, we're going to have to pick up the difference starting in '24, or those programs are going to have to die. So some of the things like providing at-risk parents, those positions, those 2 hired positions were budgeted, and the people that we hired were told, this is going to be for a couple of years, and then that will go away. We're a people business. The best way to make an impact is with people. So bringing those people in is fantastic. We are getting help directly to those who need the most help. But it's not sustainable within our budget long-term unless we come up with other places that we can cut to make it permanent. And at this point, we're not looking at it being a permanent solution. We're hoping that this amount of help now will lift up some students so they can become more successful independently after they've received this. They won't necessarily be behind if we can get them in these 2 years caught up and on their own feet. But that's a huge issue that we've been dealing with. The money is a blessing to our school district. It is something that, again, we always wanted to be able to do these really nice things, but we have to be very cognizant that it's going to run out. And whatever we do has to either be one-time expenditures, things like HVAC filters and air purificators, and things that we can have, they will be long-term, one-term purchases, or things that we're willing to sunset. And that's one of the things we'll have to evaluate in a couple of years after we've had a couple summers of summer school. Is it something that we wish to continue beyond this funding, or has it served its purpose and is no longer needed? And that's going to be a discussion for a couple of years.
Well, I appreciate that you got what I said, and I think it's true. I get a little squeamish when you start talking about jobs that are going to have to disappear, because that affects people. And in 2 years' time, we're going to grow to like and appreciate and become friends with those folks that we're going to have to say sorry. So that's my only concern really is the people. So.
There's been some talk around the state, people who are, districts who are saying, I'm not sure how to spend all this money. And it's been misinterpreted as in we didn't need it. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying this is a huge amount of money all at one time with an expiration date. The first one, the expiration date was in December. Same with Sparks. The expiration was in December. We didn't even know we were getting it until like July, August. And as much fun as it may sound to be handed $400,000, it takes a whole lot of work to figure out where to make the biggest impact, get bids, order stuff, get it in, figure out where you're going to make the biggest impact. And when you're told you've got to spend that amount of cash in that amount of time, it was like a full-time job for us in the district office, doing almost nothing else than trying to get all this money accounted for, budgeted, ordered, spent, all of that stuff tracked. And of course, it's coming from the federal, so there's all the paperwork and audits and everything else to draw it down and make sure that you're marking off everything that they need from you. So it's not that we didn't need the money, it's the amount of pressure and stress that it puts on us to do it within that time frame, very limited time frame. We're very grateful when ESSER 3 came out. They gave us till September of 24, which gives us a much broader time. But again, as we've been discussing, it still leaves us with the funding cliff in 24, in which we're going to have to make some decisions. Either we do one-time only things with this, and there's a limited amount of those things that we may want to do, or we're going to have these continuing programs like the at-risk paras and some of these subscription programs that we're using to address learning loss that we're going to have to make decisions on in a couple of years. It makes administrators nervous when you have those funding drop-offs, those deadlines, because that goes to sustainability.
Any other questions for Mr. Stump on that? No? Well, thank you for that update.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item 4.4. And it is that time again for Mr. Stump's review by the board. There is an Excel spreadsheet attached to board docs that you can sure use. And I think Kelsey has a paper copy to give everybody.
That's your spot,
Oh,
behind your computer.
oh, okay. If it's, I assume, okay with everybody, we do it like Lori has done it the last couple years. Do it individually as you have the time and see fit and can think about it, and just send it to me. And I've asked by the 29th of November so that I can have some time when I get time in the evenings to assemble everything and be able to present it for our December board meeting. So if anybody's got any questions, give me a holler. But, okay.
All right.
Woo-hoo. Board of Education Communications. Lori, it's your moment to shine.
I'm gonna let Sharice shine
Okay.
First, we were at the KFC convention this weekend, and we had really dynamic keynote speakers that I learned a lot from, and I just like going to these. It gives me just this sort of renewed positive energy and gets me back, my head back to where I'm supposed to be, and gets me out of the weeds a little bit, gets me back up on the watchtower, and reminds me an eye on the big picture, and trust everyone else to do what they're qualified to do that I'm not qualified to do. So some of the breakout sessions I went to were, this one was presented by the Newton High School principal team, and they had a lot of neat ideas that I jotted down, but it was ideas for building a strong building and district culture, and they just went over really a lot of individual personal ways that they just recognize staff and even students, and just kind of some neat processes that I think I haven't thought about yet. Heard Sue Gibbons present developing a new board team during difficult times. Sometimes I go to sessions based on the content that's going to be presented, and sometimes I go based on the presenter. That one I went for content. The next one I went back to Sue Gibbons because I just love to learn from her. And she presented recognizing and addressing unconscious gender bias, which was really something I'm interested in anyways. And it was just some new things I hadn't thought about in a different way. And so it was fun to hear her talk about that. And then by the fourth breakout, my mind was getting a little weary. And it was probably the most intense one. It was Mark Tallman. And so there was an hour and a half of information packed into 45 minutes. And it was on upcoming, mostly legislative issues for 2022. That one, I don't know if I could just talk about it off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and kind of look at those handouts, but it was good information from him. He's always kind of, no matter if his message is super positive or not, he presents it in a way that you walk away feeling good about the things that are getting ready to happen and that we need to take part in. So, and I was looking forward to going to the legislative luncheon on Wednesday, and then my mom had a doctor's appointment change, so I need to do that first. So thank you for making time.
Yeah, we're finished in Hayes, so Wednesdays I don't have to travel, so I can
There
go.
you go.
I echo. I forgot how much I love convention and learning from other people. Friday, I spent a day on the bus going to DeSoto and touring their new facilities. They have a brand new career tech ed center that they've partnered with an early education center. They're a standalone special education services. They do not co-op. And so they run their own preschool program on site with, as an inclusive model. So they have no more than 15 kids per class. They have 7 classes, half day each. And that was really fun to get to see the way they're managing that. Their CTE things that they're working on in that building are through 3 threads, including biosciences, emerging technologies. Yep, didn't write the other one down. But they're all, the emerging technologies is like really broad things like the welding is under there, robotics is under that one. So they kind of looked at what is that we want to teach and what do we have the qualified people to do. Woods, their woods and construction arts are under emerging technologies. And so they lumped that together into a pathway that was really broad so that kids could get lots of exposures to lots of different things. And that's kind of a different way of thinking about the pathway. You know, oftentimes I think about construction arts is the pathway, or medical exploration is the pathway. And so to see the way they approached that, I thought was unique in a district. You know, they're a 5A size, but they share services between Eudora and themselves. They don't reinvent the wheel. So if Eudora is offering it, then DeSoto wouldn't, and their students have that reciprocation. So it's real similar to kind of what we're doing with Planet Area Technical School. That made me think about reaching out to Solana Public Schools, because they've added a couple pathways that we don't have. Fire science is one, and I think early education is a new one that we'll be offering next school year through the technical college. If that's not on your radar, that just got approved by the Board of Regents. So I just love that, and I get to meet people that I have never met before, including Kathy's brother. So that was kind of fun. He is, he's on the Board of Education at Sullivan, and I didn't know that. So we were riding along, and you know, today he says, "You haven't figured it out yet, have you?" I don't share with people. What are you talking about? He says, "Well, I guess you wouldn't figure it out. My name is different than hers." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what is?" So I have a funny picture that she can harass him with. So that was all day Friday, and then Friday night we had our keynote speaker. And again, David Horsiger was phenomenal. This is the 3rd time I've gotten to hear him present on the 8 pillars of trust, and he is just so good. And he had different stories and different content, and I always learned something new. Saturday's breakout sessions, I actually only attended one because I was presenting, and we had delegate assembly in the middle of that. We did elect a new president-elect. There's some interesting things that have transpired due to elections in the state. Our president-elect that would have started in January did not get reelected from Spring Hill, Kansas. And that was completely unexpected. So
Elected from the KSB convention?
to his local board.
Oh, to his local.
Oh, yeah, he was already elected to be the KSB president-elect, but he did not get reelected to his local board.
Oh, okay.
But he can't serve. So Thursday night, our KSB board meeting was addressing how to proceed with that. And one of the 2 candidates for president-elect for next year did not get reelected to her local board. So that eliminated a candidate, and we kind of had to work through what does that look like according to KSB's bylaws. But we're fine the way it is, and so we will no longer have a designee beyond from November till January, which actually is way better than a 7 or 14 month weird and ambiguous role that we've had previously. So Art Gutierrez from Emporia is our new president-elect for next year, and then Brad Berksma steps into the president role effective January 1. And Shannon Kimball will continue as past president perpetually, since I cannot fulfill my past president's role since I didn't run for our local board. So let's see. And then yes,
They're just throwing them off.
yeah, it's like bananas.
Yeah.
So we had we had to, like, literally, if you guys ever work with Mark Tallman, you know that he has all these interpretations of language. So he had 8 different interpretations of the Constitution and what we could or should do in terms of how we approached filling those seats. And so we went with the cleanest, easiest one that did not disturb or create additional vacancies. So, and then yesterday's speaker, President L, is or not President, Principal L, is a principal from Delaware, kindergarten through 8th grade. He is a man that is just on fire, and his whole premise is that every child deserves to have somebody that's crazy about them. And he inspires his teachers to be that person. And the energy that he brought was just so inspiring and motivating, and really talking through a growth mindset that, you know, we need to teach kids not only how to succeed, but also how to handle failure and how to respond when things don't go the way we think they might. And so that was just a really great day. Do you have anything else to add about conventions?
I attended the session more at East Coast Launch, which was very informative. One of the less formal sessions, we had a working lunch on Saturday with the State Board of Education, and got a chance to talk a little bit with them, what their priorities are. The State Board of Education runs very much like this Board of Education. This Board of Education is responsible for the local school. They're responsible for all the state schools and curriculum. So it's an umbrella in which we fit under. And one of the issues that they're dealing with at state level is, I'm not sure the best way to describe it, but intrusion from the legislature. The state board, like you, are somewhat autonomous, given local control and the ability to guide education in the state of Kansas. The Commissioner of Education is similar to a superintendent to you. Commissioner of Education reports to the state board, very similar parallel there. And the Constitution of the state of Kansas grants them the sole authority to do those sorts of things. But yet the state legislature has been delving into educational issues like bills to change the graduation requirements and things like that, which are clearly within the realm of the state board. So,
you know, an interesting fact is that our legislature actually is the one that created the State Board of Education because they were focusing so much time and energy on creating education policy and governance over our local boards, but they wanted people that had expertise in education to do that. So I find it deeply ironic that we're in the situation we are right now.
yeah, they've decided that they don't like other people in those positions and have started to try and take back, but it's too late. It's in the Constitution. So there is some real concern with some of the proposals that have occurred over the last several years and what kind of impact they might have on public schools. There's been a very distinct drive for privatization, diverting public funds to private schools. The claim is that it will not impact public school funding. The reality is, I don't see how they can distinguish because they're not about to put more money into the system to account for that money. Eventually, it's going to come out of the money they budget to us. I don't see any other way. But there's the legislative session coming up. You can see the list of legislators that are going to come to the legislative luncheon. It is a good thing to be establishing those connections with the local representatives. If you have any in or chance to get to know, to talk to bend the ear of somebody. The public school system has long been held as one of the best return on investments for the public economy, the greater good, the state of Kansas. There's been multiple studies on the ROI for public education, and it's been widely considered to pay dividends beyond initial investments.
to the order of 1.5 and higher on every dollar invested back into the economy. So those are the kinds of things we really need to advocate for. Public school systems, statewide test scores are not necessarily knocking it out of the park, but some of the discrepancies there are really being over exaggerated to try and make us look bad so that they can do the things to us that they want to do to us. The cut scores for the state assessments are determined locally, and by the definitions the State Board of Education have set, they are some of the highest cut scores in the entire country as far as what the different rankings are, because if you want to have a rigorous curriculum, you can't make the state assessment so easy that everybody can do it. But the problem is, if you make it more difficult that it looks like only so many kids are doing it, then you get attacked for that. But if you make it so easy that it looks like everybody's succeeding, then you get attacked for that. So it's one of those things that if people want to attack us, doesn't matter what we do, they're going to flip it around on us. The ACT state averages has gone down. We knew it would. The minute that they decided that it would be a free test that all juniors were recommended to take. We went from 70-some% of our students, which was already very high, taking the ACT, to somewhere close to 90% of our students taking the ACT. And those are students that not traditionally would, that extra gap. Some surprised us by doing very well, but many of them would not have taken it, and the average was bound to go down. You test a wider range, you're going to lower those scores. We knew it before it ever happened. But the fact that it happened now becomes fodder to criticize public schools on. Commissioner Watson gave us some statistics that people who are anti-public education don't want to talk about. For example, our graduation rate in the state of Kansas over the last 5 years has gone up almost 6%. I think it was something like 82% to 88% in the state of Kansas. Our graduation 5-year average is now 98%. 5-year average, we graduated 98% of our students over those 5 years, which is just astounding. And if you go back 20 years, we didn't even try that. We weren't even close to that. We were in the 70%. If a kid was difficult at 16, we encouraged them to sign out. That's when I was in school, which wasn't that many years ago, long enough ago, but principals would take their troubled kids and say, you know, you ought to think about dropping out. That was the approach to those kids who caused trouble in school. We don't do that. We find a way to try and get that student to understand the value of education. The level of successes that we have achieved over the last 5 years is pretty significant. But anytime you're looking for something, you can find a statistic to prove one way or another. So it will be interesting to hear the legislative luncheon and the perceptions of the people there, but we need to advocate as much as possible. We need to promote the good things that are going on in our building. 5-10 years ago, this district had 12 college credits taught on campus. 6 years ago when I came, we're up to 60. 12 to 60. So the number of kids that are graduating with certificates, CNA or welding or whatever else, has grown dramatically over those years. We put effort into that. So it's really hard for me to stomach when somebody looks at a test score and says, this test score says you're not doing well.
we decided 10 years ago that education was a whole lot more than one test on that. And as a philosophical thing, it's one of those things that we need to understand what it is that's our goal. Is our goal to be the best test takers in the world, or to be producing the best students, most successful students in the world? Because they're not the same thing. And that's one of those things we have to balance. Yes, we have to be able to prove our kids know what they're doing. And testing is one way to do that. It is not the end-all be-all to what makes a kid successful, if they know how to fill in bubbles on standardized tests. So we have to balance those things. Do any of you have any specific things that you'd like us to bring to the legislative luncheon? Shoot me an email. We've already talked amongst, it's being sponsored by the Smoky Hill Service Center, and we've already talked in some of our administrative meetings with some of the topics and things we'd like to hear from the legislatures on.
On a separate non-KSB note, we have a patron, Joe Jackson, who is serving on the Equity Council in Salina as a community representative. And he shared with me some materials on that work that he's been a part of for the last 3 years that he asked for me to forward on to you. So I will send it to you, Kelsey, electronically. You can just share that. And it may be something that we want to look at as a district, and educating people about what the difference between equity and equality are. Really diving in and making sure that everybody's voice is given an opportunity to be heard. And I'm not tracking it out just adults, I'm tracking out children and the students that we serve also, and making sure that everybody has a place, which really goes back to our goal number 1 of manifesting our culture where everyone feels safe and included. So I will share that information with you.
Yes, and to our goals, I want to talk about civic engagement. And again, put out thanks to the sponsors and the kids who came to Gypsum to make the Fall Festival very successful. FCCLA and FBLA, they did the fun run in the morning. The FFA does a lot. I mean, they do so much, I don't know how they do it. But they do help serve food. They do the bingo. They entered a float in the parade and got 3rd place. So getting our students who aren't even from Gypsum down there and involved is huge, greatly appreciated from our staff, because I know it takes a lot. But we did have the band. They got 2nd place for one of the places, or one of the people walking in the parade. And then volleyball came down and did a large float, and they got 1st place. So, and I know Ashley's very competitive, so I'm sure she's super happy about that. And then SFA got 3rd place with their float. So it's just amazing participation that we have from the school at the Gypsum area, and it's greatly appreciated. So hopefully we'll have more participation next year.
Don't forget the sparklers participation as well.
Yes, there was more, but I haven't named them. I just put the winners for the parade. But yeah, there was, cheerleaders, sparklers, the what?
The trap shooting team.
Yeah, the trap team, and there's one other one that I'm missing. I can't think of it right now. But yeah, the trap team served food also. They made fish fry for lunch. So that's reason enough to go to Gypsum for lunch. It's very, very good. Chris Fritz has that down to a T. So fun time.
Anything else?
I'm starting to get, I think it was kind of triggered by maybe the elementary Halloween parade. The last year, obviously, we didn't have it, but it's starting to trigger some more questions about access to our building from parents. And, you know, we can come to a volleyball game or a basketball game, but we can't attend certain during the day activities, lunch.
of things happening in the elementary. So I know this is a balancing thing that we have to continue to sort through, and I'm not on the gating committee, so I don't know if it's things that you guys will continue to discuss, but just know that.
We haven't met this year since the board wanted to make all the decisions for changes. We haven't met.
Well, the decision-making was, yes, we would vote on recommendations, but that didn't, and I know we haven't had them, but I thought we were going to still have them. We would make recommendations, but yes, we voted to have the board vote on them, but the recommendation process wasn't supposed to change, Steve. But, I mean,
That's the board can
We
do
will
that now.
continue to review those.
I mean, we haven't really changed anything since our reopening plan.
well, I understand, but
Haven't had a need to.
if the reason that we haven't had a gating committee is because we told the gating committee that they needed to be voted on, that doesn't sound like a great reason not to have a gating committee meeting to me.
Okay.
And I forgot to thank SCCL again for the coin drive for Love Chloe Foundation. Yes, was I in Gypsum yesterday? Yes, Saturday, we had a benefit auction for a kid. And some of the kids there saw the signs and they were so excited that the school raised money for Love Chloe. So thank you to all who took part in that, because when kids can recognize that they're helping other kids, I think that's a great thing.
Do you have anything to add for your report?
I do not. I've shared things along the way, so if you have additional questions, always feel free to respond to my emails during the month, or if you have something specific you'd like me to address. Otherwise, I have nothing to add.
Okay, we'll move on to principals report. And we'll go counterclockwise.
I'm sorry.
They're all on a line.
Sorry. Start out and then go.
I just wanted to see the list.
I don't really have anything to add. I pointed out on the cultural relationships. FCCLA does have the Racial Challenge booked. We have a date for that. So, and they're working on their fundraising and then see where we're at on that. But January 12th is when the Racial Challenge presentations will remain. So they have got that booked. And on the Love Chloe coin thing, it did raise $2,944. And that was K through 12 that all participated. That wasn't just high school. That was the total amount that the school raised for that. So very good. Thank you. Very good fundraiser. And SCCLA, one of the committees of that, is one who organized that and did everything. They collected it, changed it, brought it in, and then made trips to the bank to get all those coins counted and everything else. So they did it. We do have a career day tomorrow. We've decided instead of doing a big career fair within our advisory, there'll be different career assemblies. So tomorrow the kids had 4 options of different careers or places to go that the kids chose what they're going to, and then every high school student will hear a speaker tomorrow, and the 4 topics are on that. So, and then we'll have another one in January, there's another one, but we've worked those into advisory instead of doing just one big career fair, kind of working those in periodically throughout the year. We don't have anything in addition to.
I don't either.
Mr. Court, we have October party. What do you think for the elementary? It seems pretty high. Do you know if years past, we start going up as the year goes on, or?
I don't know that.
Those are probably not students, but. Yeah.
It's not students, yeah, it's 38 times that somebody's doing charge.
It could be the same student.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, okay.
Which in itself could be a real problem.
Yeah, we have
Right.
that are high flyers that.
Okay, that makes sense. I was like, oh my goodness. I do like your reports, thank you. And I think I've told you before, but I appreciate all of your social media. Everything is very up to date and very informative. So I appreciate that. I know that's very time consuming too. So thank you for doing all of that.
Thank you, Mrs. Gorman, for noting the collaboration with the local preschool teachers. I see there's 4. I assume, do you know, is that including all of the preschool teachers that are in the district?
It does include our 2.
Thank you for letting us know about that and following through on that.
This year, our kindergarten students came from 13 different businesses. So it's more good start.
Yes.
Okay. We'll move on to, does anybody reading the information feel the need to have executive session?
That's the other one, five, that just clarify.
Exactly. On the students?
Yeah, I think so.
I move with the board meets an executive session for purposes of identifiable student or students for 10 minutes until 7:50.
Which of the principals do we need involved, or do we, or? I guess I don't know that I have a good.
I don't know.
That's
I mean,
good.
they can both the head principals could stay. It's a short exec, and I don't know that they may have something additional to offer.
I don't know.
Second. Second. All right.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. I haven't seen Jimmy. so,
Jimmy's mouth moved. I went,
Did it? Okay.
yeah, he thumbs up and.
All right, so 7-0.
And so just as a point for anybody who might be listening at home, we're going to do a tour of the facility, and when we do that, we will end the live stream. We're not going to try and carry a phone around or something as we do a quick tour of the building. So the live stream will be ending here shortly as we do the tour.
Okay.
Oh, reconnected.
We are live.
Okay.
When we hired Kayla Kloster as a library aide.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed? Anybody see Jimmy?
That's fine.
7-0.
I do have a question about the job description. And it might just be wording, but it keeps saying patron. Do patrons come to our library, or are we saying patrons are students?
We're saying patrons of the library, which is customers of the library, people who use the library.
But that is all in-school people.
Yes.
Because in one sentence, it'll say students and staff, and then it'll say patrons, so it's very misleading.
Yes. We got input from both the departing library aide and the current librarian, and I believe that is library terminology.
Okay.
Well, and they did open it to the community this summer to come use it. And I think that probably, you're looking at number 10, the Kansas Library Card Account.
Yeah, that.
Because there is a reciprocal thing, but if you have an account with the Salina Public Library, and you have a Kansas card, that you can actually use our library system. So.
Yes.
I
But
do
in
have
this
an
case,
account there.
patron is synonymous with customer at this
I
point.
assumed, but I just wanted to make sure, because I thought, what?
Yeah.
That's another breakout session this weekend.
Library?
Of that partnership.
Oh, okay.
Oh, God, yeah.
We need a motion for that.
For what?
Oh, I moved to approve the library aid job description.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
We probably should have done them the other way. Probably should have approved the description before you approved the hire.
I don't know how you want to count, Sharice.
Let's put a break.
With that, I am going to suggest maybe a 5-minute break and then we start our tour.
Yeah.
Is that okay with everyone?
Get it stretch out a little bit. Thank you, lady.
For the people at home, we will adjourn the meeting following the tour. We will not come back into this room. So we will go ahead and disconnect the live feed at this time. We anticipate the tour will take 30 to 40 minutes or so, but we will not resume. So thank you for watching.
David, do you have a question?
Mr. Stone.
Yeah.
No, I had.
Hopefully you can hear me. Roger, can we schedule a facilities meeting? We haven't had one for a while. I would like to get one on the schedule.
Sure thing. We'll look and see what kind of dates and times we can get aligned with everybody, and we'll get one on the calendar.
Sounds sick. I hope you feel better.
I hope I get to feeling better too.
All right.
Sure.
I had one.
Or you had one? I'm like, oh.